welcome to another PD chat show with our regular panel, Rob, Brian and Pete Cater. Hi guys, say hello.
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 Hi guys.
And also a very special guest all the way over the pond again is Gary Astridge. Welcome Gary, it's a pleasure to have you on the PD chat show.
Thank you, it's an honor to be here, I appreciate it.
Good. For all those who are not aware, Gary Astridge, obviously, I don't know where you've been for the last this last week's been posting all over Facebook. But Gary is Ringo's like a historian and curator of his drum kits as well. And you have a special kind of connection with Ringo. But would you, for the audiences out there, would you mind just explaining basically why you become it's like right-hand man for Ringo Starr, please.
Okay. It all started as a child, as many people my age in the U.S. When we saw the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show on February 9th of '64. And I was just a kid that had no interest in music, nothing. But that night changed me. And it was almost like a sci-fi movie, really, when you think about it. Everything is normal, you're watching the Beatles and everyone gets transfixed, and then life is totally different. So, but just to speed up, taught myself to play drums. At one point in my life, I wanted a Ringo kit. I thought I knew enough, bought one, and it was wrong. So that started me doing research, and I learned that he had more than one. And as I was doing research, it became a passion. And I started sourcing out and looking to buy drums all specific to his, and it helped with my research. So over decades, I amassed a collection of drum kits, all specific to what Ringo had, with the hardware, same year of model drums. And when I was finished, it was like, now what? And I decided to create a website to share information that I knew was solid. So I created ringosbeatlekits.com. And end of 2012, I got a call from the Grammy Museum in Los Angeles. And I was told by this person that they had signed an agreement with Ringo and his wife, Barbara, to do an exhibit on Ringo's life called Ringo Peace and Love. And as part of the exhibit, the Starkeys were loaning a lot of memorabilia and personal items. So the Grammy Museum asked for the drum kit that Ringo used on the Ed Sullivan Show to represent the beginning of his career with the Beatles, and his Ludwig Hollywood maple kit to represent the end of his career. And so a problem came up. The Grammy Museum called Ringo's people in London saying, hey, this is what we're looking for. And they were told, well, we've got drums, but we don't know what's what. There's a lot of this oyster black pearl, but we don't know what drum goes with what drum to make a kit. And they were freaking out. And so they started doing online searches, and all that kept coming up was my website. And that's how I got the call, and that's how I got involved.
Brilliant. So, sorry, I was having my phone back there. Just before we move on with the story, Gary, Rob, can I come to you? Obviously, if people know you, and if you basically just move slightly to your left, people know you as a big Beatles fan. What did Ringo actually mean to you the first time you saw him?
I remember what it was. It was on Nationwide with Frank Boff.
Right, yeah.
The night that he was shot, BBC changed all their viewing for the night as a tribute to the Beatles. And I was 10, and I remember going to school that day, and I know a lot of drummers I've spoken to at shows have said the same thing, that at my age, they remember all the teachers were crying and all this kind of stuff. We were like, what's going on? What are you doing? And that night I just saw all these clips on the news of these screaming fans and different images through the years. And I thought, I know the Monkees because they'd been on TV, but I don't know these guys. And my parents were like, these were the guys that, the Monkees were trying to be. And I remember listening to the music, and I just felt, it just touched me in some way. There was something about it that just communicated. So I went out and bought all the records when I got my pocket money. And just listened And it was obviously harmony. It was the songs, the 2-minute songs that were just perfectly formed. But of course, it was the drums, because at that point I've been playing drums for a year. And it was this sound, the snare sound, and the sort of ride, or was it sizzled hi-hat? I couldn't work out how he was making those sounds. And I'd buy different records. I didn't know the order because I hadn't bought any books at that point. And my parents said, well, buy whichever one you fancy by the cover. So I was buying something like maybe Help, and then I'd buy like maybe Abbey Road, and then I'll sort of go back to Please Please Me. And it was like, whoa, there's like 2 different bands here. And every time I got into something different, the drum sound changed and his playing changed to suit the music. And, you know, as I carry on with my career, you know, I can't thank the band and him enough, because I've learned so much from his playing. And it just communicates to me, you know, because I love the complicated players and I love complicated song players. Ringo can be all those things, but, you know, there's a subtlety to his playing that the old left-handed play on the right-handed kit, all that kind of thing adds to that. And to be honest with you, I think I've said to you before, Matt, when I'm in the studio, people sometimes say, obviously, what would Gad do, like on a groove, and you think, well, but people always say, what would Ringo do? And you're like, yeah, okay, what would Ringo do? And that's with a lot of people that I've worked with. And the music might not be Beatle related at all, but it's something about his feel that just communicates across, you know, music. Which is one of the reasons why I always sort of fly the flag for Ringo when I'm at clinics and things. People give all the obvious names for drummers, and I'll say, man, you must try and listen to Ringo for these reasons. And I was thinking today, I need a 4-hour show, if, you know, every week for the next month to tell you why I love him so much. But, you know, I'll do my best to compile it into little sound bites for your questions.
Don't worry, I'll control you. That's fine, no problem.
Thank you.
No problem. Just before we move on, there's lots of highs because we've got lots of people watching. Thank you very much. There's lots of people who obviously, you know, been supporting us throughout this fantastic few months we have, because as I say, it's been really, you know, good over 3 months now. So Simon Wagstaff, Richie Burns, Joe Morris, Phoebe, hello, Mike Tubman. Oh, Mike just says, beard gone, Rob, really suits you. He shaved off a while back and grew it again, so thanks for noticing these things.
I shaved
Dave Brown, hi. Glyn Jones, Bob Smelt, Kenneth Russell Everett, Mr. Simon Wagstaff, hello Simon, Joshua Holmes, Nick Benz, Tristan Long, Ian Sturgeon, Sharon Elizabeth, Ben, the list goes on and on. Gaynor Donnelly Williams, Ian Warren, Richard Powell. They can get actually on. So thank you so much for watching. Obviously, people are coming on all the time. If you've got any questions about specifically sort of really Ringo and especially the drum kits or anything sort of music related to all that, please put it in the comments below. If you're watching it for the first time, do it now. Go to the Palace Drum Clinic Facebook page and like us, because then you'll get all the great stuff that we do, because we're doing some fantastic things at the moment, and we've got some fantastic things to come up, so we'll tell you about it later. And also go to the PalaceDrumClinic.com and you'll see all of the previous clinics, because we do live clinics as well, what's coming up, and you know, loads of things in past clinics as well. So thank you very much for watching, and please go to the Palace Drum Clinic page now and like us. And also we've got the Palace Drum Clinic club, the drumming club, so Palace Drumming Club, more interactive, lots of stuff in there as well. So join up, because there's some amazing stuff happening. And also right now, who I'm going to come to next is Pete. You obviously, can you remember, so with obviously the Beatles first time around, and what was the special? Was anything special for you? So when you basically heard that power of the drums coming through?
Believe it or not, I'm not quite old enough to really remember the Beatlemania of like 1963, 64, 65, and so on. I remember being very young and hearing like things like Penny Lane and Hey Jude on the radio. But what did it for me, and I'm sure quite a few people would remember this, that the BBC, every Christmas, a couple of days after Christmas, in the middle of the day, they would always show one of the Beatles movies. Right. And I remember seeing A Hard Day's Night when I was about 8 or 9, and just being completely blown away by, I mean, I knew the music. I did go out the following day and buy the album. But just it was so evocative it made, I think for me, that had the same impact that I think that February the 9th Ed Sullivan telecast had on the United States. It made tens of thousands of young people want to go out and be in bands. And of course, back then, here in the UK, most television was in black and white. We didn't have color television back then. And Ringo was extremely prescient in that, whether he realized it or not, Oyster Black Pearl looks just the same on black and white television as it does on color television. So you got it, you know, all those old British TV shows, the drum set looks the same in black and white as it does in color. If you had gold sparkle or pink champagne or whatever, the effect would not have been the same. He had the one drum finish that looks great on black and white television. And to me, that's kind of part of it as well. But it just epitomizes a whole era. There are songs that, you know, his signature drum parts are absolutely immediately identifiable by people who don't know one end of a drumstick from another. You know, if you play them the drum groove to Ticket to, if you just sat down at a drum set and played the drum groove for Ticket to Ride, people would know that straight away. And you know, when you do something that is that recognizable and that evocative, that's when you're making history.
Yeah, yeah. I've got to actually ask a question regarding the film. Is it Yesterday, when the whole world forgets about the Beatles one evening, and this is one guy. He said, "Would that really happen? Would just like, you know, would someone really sort of remember our songs?" Well, yes, I think they would, because they're so much part of our lives, aren't they? And for me, I can remember as a young man in my junior sort of wind bands that I used to play with, so like youth room bands. We'd play Beatles melodies. We'd just like bring this one out. So like Maxwell's Silver Hammer. So I love playing that. Do you know what I mean? It's all these kind of things. So everybody sort of basically grew up with these things, and you know, and as drummers, you constantly listen to like that drum beat, because obviously you're playing those drum beats if you're trying to play the song. So, couple of more hellos. Sharon Roll, hello. AJ Roselle, hello. Tony Scullion, Andrew Dowles, Andrew Thomas, Malcolm Phillips, Tim Rankin, hi Tim. Peter Williams. Oh, here we go. Peter Williams, Gary. Could you ask Gary if he knows, does Ringo still have the original Ludwig drum kit? Well, this is one of the questions going to come on to, so about the drum kits next, because obviously as well. So has he still got the original Ludwig drum kit?
Yeah, well, he just to back up a minute, he had 6 drum kits that he played during his career with the Beatles. One was the premier kit. And then he ended up having 5 Ludwig kits. 4 of them were Oyster Black Pearl. 2 were like the smaller size, a downbeat model, and 2 were super classics. So I restored the 5 that he had. Everything was brought back up to where it should be, to be presentable. And in 2015, he sold at auction his first Ludwig kit. So he still has his other 4. And the one that he sold for $2.1 million.
Wow! Shocking.
Yeah.
Shocking.
You know what? You know what's really shocking about the auction is that when with that particular kit, when I put it back together, I actually told Ringo at one point, or put word out to him. I said, you know what? I says these kits are so special, not only because it's the Beatles, but because it's Ringo. And there was so much missing at the time, you know, hardware, cymbals. So I said, I have everything that's all period correct to make your kits whole. So allow me to provide whatever is needed, so that, you know, no one goes to a museum and just says, what happened to the drums? It's just like a bass drum with no front head and a beat up tom, or, you know, and no heads. So he said yes. And so to get to the point, Jim Irsay, owner of here in the U.S. of the Indianapolis Colts football team, he's the one who bought it. And what he actually bought that was original was the complete 14 by 14 floor tom, the drum, the 12 by 8 tom, and the bass drum, or part of the bass drum. But what I added was the front hoop, the front head, the T-rods and claws, The snare drum didn't come with it, but all the other hardware, the stands, pedal, that was all from my collection. So when you sit down and think of what you got for all that money, you know.
Did you get any of that money yourself to replace the?
The only thing I got out of it is seeing Ringo be really, really happy with me. So
yeah, amazing. So we've got some lovely comments coming in. Hi, Rob Case, Rosemary, Rod Sidaway, Hugo Loudon, Jetta Jim Vale as well. She says, at school, my music teacher was a massive Beatles fan. He introduced them to me, and I learned a lot of their songs on piano. I only later discovered the drumming. I have a lot to thank to that teacher for. Well, actually, I had one of those at school. So he was a very John Lennon fan. He used to play Imagine a lot, basically sing it to us. So you can imagine how that would have panned out, really. So with So Gary, you were saying obviously, you put these kits going. How did the whole kind of Ringo and you basically get together? How did that work, and how did that pan out?
Understanding what you mean.
Oh, how come you got this lovely relationship now? Because for people who don't know, Ringo has this inner circle, as you call it, doesn't he? You're within that inner circle. How does that develop to you coming within that circle?
Well, I think what helped, because Rob, I am like you. I'm a fanatic. But what I found was when I started working on projects, going out to California a lot, Ringo would come into the room, and I would realize I'm not starstruck. I'm not getting stupid, saying, "Oh my God, you're here. Can I hug you?" And So it was like a slow process, and I just found myself just being very respectful, just doing whatever the project was that he would ask me to do, and I would do it at a very high level, and always friendly, always trusting, and obviously with what I was doing, I had to be trusted. So just things I kept doing for him just gave him a level of trust and confidence, and I think with Ringo, he's pretty streetwise, so he's always looking at people of okay, when's it going to happen? When am I going to get and see the real guy? But I always was the real guy, and just because of that, I think he just took to me and allowed me into the circle.
Fantastic. And talk about the circle. Obviously, he had a big birthday this week, if people aren't aware. It was his big, the 8-0. You were there, weren't you, for majority of it?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more. It's how your day planned out.
All right. Well, it was an honor to be invited, and it wasn't a public event; it was a media event, and it was really under wraps, not wanting it to get out. So all my friends didn't know. The only one that knew was my wife and sister. And because of COVID, I didn't make the final decision until Sunday. And I flew out Monday morning. And what was interesting for me was that on the day of his birthday, or the evening before his birthday, I was asked if I would help with security. And I said, yeah, sure. And I actually did a security project with him in November of last year. So the day of his birthday, I got a call from the head security person who said, hey, thanks for helping me with this. I can't be there. I'm going to run down everything and the details that you need to know. And so I got to be the guy, the lead person, for Ringo and Barbara being there. So it was quite an honor. Yeah, but it was just fun. Ringo is just a great guy. You see the videos. He's 80, going on 40, and he's high energy. He's I can't say enough about him. Sometimes people would say maybe you really don't want to meet your idols because they could turn out to be a what, and he is everything you would expect him to be and more.
That's so lovely. Dave Brown as well. I have the same birthday as Ringo, 7th of July. Well done, Dave. That's what many people have, yeah. No, it's always lovely. Hello, Tom Brady, Liz Whitehead, Amit Oulet, I hope I said that right, Charlie Ashby, Gordon Kerr, Anthony Somerville, Ap Chamalad. So actually fantastic. Hugo Lau, do you think the overhead type mics rather than the individual drum mics gave the great warm, less attack sound that was good for the song Ringo played on? Rob, I want to come to you there because we've discussed many times, and you've got many different kinds of albums and different mixes and stuff like that. Yeah. Can you answer that one?
You know, I mean, I think if you listen to the early stuff, because if you came to the PDC drum camp, me and John Bucket, who runs a studio in Swindon, do a little recording drum day, and we break down the sort of Abbey Road Ringo sound and then the Bonham and so on, and we move it forward. And I think if you listen to some of the early stuff, you know, there's quite a lot of phasing going on, and you can't hear the bass drum. The things are bounced down so far that it kind of disappears. And then when you get to things like Rubber Soul and Revolver, they'd learned about mic placement. The engineers had done enough chin stroking, and also other bands at the same time were learning as well. You know, because there's a lot of pilfering from all the bands. But of course, the Beatles were the biggest sellers. So even if it was somebody else's idea, we was like, oh, the Beatles have come with this idea. So you get something like Rubber Soul and especially Revolver, and the drums are just in your face, and it becomes the sound. You know, and Glyn Johns suddenly comes up with this sound, and becomes the sound. And it's quite easy to replicate. The drumming isn't, you know, and the feel, and you weren't there in 1966, and you know, the drum kit isn't the same and the air moving isn't the same, but you could kind of get a feel for it by doing certain mic setups. And I think you should look at the pictures that are available of Ringo's drum set and the mics they used. And of course it was Abbey Road, so they had the best mics money can buy, Coles and things, you know. And that makes a massive difference. But we do an experiment when we bring them up, we take them down, you know, nothing on the toms at all, maybe one on the snare drum, and we experiment in that drum day, and you can get some really interesting drum sounds. But from all the pictures that we've got and the research we've done, you hear something like Tomorrow Never Knows, and the drums could have been recorded yesterday. Not the song yesterday, but they could have been recorded literally yesterday. And it's just so exciting. And then the trouble is, on the same album, you'll go a few tracks back and you'll hear Got to Get You Into My Life, and the drums are so far back in the mix again. It's like, oh, you know, and then other tracks, they're really prominent. And it's kind of a mixed thing. But I think the Ringo sound, unlike the Bonham sound, is slightly harder to get. It takes a lot of experimenting with different mics and stuff. But what I always say to people who are looking for, you know, that Tony Williams ride sound, it depends a lot on the stick you use, you know, where the mics are placed on the day, you know, all those kind of things. And I think we have to remember, when we look at 60s music, there was so much experimentation because there were no rules. The engineers and the bands were making the rules as they went, which is why I think it was such an exciting time, the 50s, 60s, and early 70s, because it was so experimental. And, you know, it could have been a different band in a different studio doing a similar thing. Because in the States, they were doing it in Memphis as well, a different thing. But that Beatles sound and that drum sound is, to me, when I'm trying to recreate that, it's so evocative of so many things. That I think sometimes, you know, taking the mics away from the kit, a 2-mic setup or something, you know, to get that authentic sound, you lose definition in the bass drum a little bit, but you get a certain excitement around the drums, which, you know, for the right song is amazing, you know, and it's possible to do. You just have to experiment, spend a lot of time experimenting, and the room as well, you know.
The room as well. Pete, am I right saying that you've actually recorded in Studio 2 Abbey Road?
The last working day I did before lockdown was in Studio 2. Yeah.
Because I've recorded there, so when you walk in, you just have that kind of, oh wow, the Beatles there. Do you get that kind of tingling effect with the first time, or still get that kind of effect?
It's a living museum. You've only got to, you know, walk up and down the stairs and down the corridors and see all the amazing history that is associated with that room, and none of it more meaningful to the general public than the Beatles records. And you know, you go back into those early years, and we think about how we record now. I've actually done one day at work post lockdown, which was a session for a writer friend of mine, and I didn't do it in layers. I played complete parts all the time, but I did get some mixes back this week, and you know, they've looped some of the things I did, and obviously multi-tracking, you know, close miking, ambient miking. And when you think about everything pre about 1966, 67, there was no multi-tracking. It's live playing. It's, you know, it's guys playing like it's a gig, but with the audience is microphones and tape machines and a producer and an engineer. And there's something about the way people used to record that has a, you know, the energy is in a different place. And it's artistically led, it's musically led, rather than being led by technology, which is much more prevalent now. And you know, that's not in any pejorative sense. I'm not implying in any way that one is better than another, but what you have to go back and think about, you know, a live band in a studio, and you know, their relative placement to one another and the placement of the microphones as to how the, you know, the engineer and the tape machine is hearing what's going on. Because, you know, they were, there was much more danger in recording back then, because, you know, that was it. You only had one shot at it, and if it wasn't right, you had to do the whole thing. You know, doing pickups. I mean, obviously people were cutting tape with razor blades, but for the most part, it was like, you know, it was a much more real way of recording than what we're accustomed to now.
Definitely. Could I just add to that? I mean, you know, try not to be too much of a Beatle fan, but I say to people who are sort of cynics about that whole thing, I say, well, look, just pick the needle up and drop it down on Taxman, on Revolver, just track one. Listen to the excitement of the rhythm section. You know, when you break it down, they've isolated the bass and the drums, and there's a bit of spill, and it does move a little bit, but the excitement it creates on the track is amazing. And that's for a lot of that, you know, see, we're talking about the Beatles tonight, a lot of those tracks are like that. They move a little bit and the sound isn't really brilliant, but it's exciting. You know, it's so exciting, and it just drew me in anyway. I loved it. And I'm 50 now. I'm still loving it.
50 in 1 week.
And counting, yeah.
Gary, we've got some nice questions for you. Richie Burns, he's got a couple, but I'm going to answer this one first. Did Ringo use a Speed King pedal?
Yes.
Thank you very much. So that was good done. It was basically the choice. Has anyone seen the reproduction, well, the new Speed Kings at all? Gary, have you seen one? So did you?
Yeah, I have. And I saw it at NAMM.
Yeah.
And then I heard that there was a few things that they had to fine tune. So what I saw was great.
Yeah. You didn't get to play on one at all?
No.
No. Okay. I'm still waiting to play. I'm still waiting for my doorbell to ring. Going, here we are. Try this. So, Ludwig, if you're out there, thank you very much.
Have a nice wait.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Pete. Thank you very much. I'll stick with my WFL one. It's fine. Gordon Curtis put, I read years ago that Ringo's first Ludwig kit arrived. It was supposed to be the Super Classic, but it was sent with a 20-inch bass drum by mistake, along with the 13 and 16 toms. Ludwig offered to replace the bass drum with the correct 22 drum, but Ringo discovered he actually preferred the smaller bass drum. Apparently, with his small stature, he liked the fact that the smaller drums make him look taller. Gary, is that true?
No. Yeah, there's so many stories out there that aren't true, and that's one of them.
One of them, yeah.
Yeah, Ringo said that when he was in search of a drum, he was new drum kit. He was with Brian Epstein. He went into Drum City, and the drum kit was there, and so he just said that's what I want.
Yeah, because isn't the story? It's like, you know, they're trying to take like the Ludwig off, and he went, no, I want to keep that. That's
exactly.
Yeah, that's what attracted to him, wasn't it? That kind of. That's right. Regarding that, Richie Burns, well, I know the answer to this, but for the purpose of everyone, who actually designed the Drop T logo on the bass drum?
You know what, the story that Ivor Arbetter tells, he was the owner of
Yes, Ivor Arbetter, that's right.
Yeah, he said he came up with the Drop T logo, but I heard a different version that still might have involved Ivor, but it's slightly different, and I think it's very credible. and if you'd like, I'd explain it because I have something very special to show you that I brought with me.
I'll sit back. There we go. Go off you go.
Okay. From 1963 to 1967, there was a gentleman by the name of Dave Golding who worked at Drum City. Started out as working in the service department, and when he left as manager. And when I was going through Ringo's kits, I was disassembling his very first super classic, and I take the top head off his tom, and I did a WTF. There was a business card held on by a washer, and it said Dave Golding, Drum City, and go like, seriously? This thing's been in there for 50 years. So believe it or not, I tracked him down, and he's a great guy. We had shared conversations and emails, and then we met in 2017 in Manchester. I was there for the UK Drum Show, and he came up with his wife and son, and he was just a great guy and just full of information. And there was other people there like Roy Halladay. Also, so the people that know Dave just said, if he tells you something, take it to the bank. And so when I was talking to Dave about a lot of Ringo related things, didn't even ask, he just said, did you ever hear of oh God, help me with the name, the person that created or painted the drum head. His name is escaping me. It'll come to me, but
the other guy who runs it. We'll think of it in a second.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of people out there screaming the name.
Yeah.
He was very good friends with Dave. And this guy had a withered arm, and he did a lot of work painting storefront windows and doing bass drums for Drum City. So Dave just said to me, he says, in the workshop I had my workbench, and he goes, and I had a placard on my bench. He goes, if I had that today, I'd be a millionaire. I go, and because of his accent, my accent, I just said, a placard? And he goes, yeah. And he goes, a white piece of a cardboard or hardboard, and he says there was 3 different Beatle logos painted on it, and I said, really? I said, so what's that all about? And then I wish I could remember the gentleman's name, but he said that Eddie Stokes.
Eddie Stokes,
yeah. And so Eddie created 3 different versions of the Beatles logo, because they had none at the time. And Mel Evans came into the shop, and Dave took this white hardboard and gave it to Mel. Mel went back to the Beatles, and I guess there might have been tweaking, but they made a decision and then came back. And that story made sense to me because, for a couple of reasons. A, Dave didn't take any credit to say he was somehow involved. He was just the guy handing it off. And I'm thinking, the Beatles were all creative. They're artists. So why would they allow some person just to create it and say, yeah, that's good enough? So, but here's what I asked Dave. I said, God, if there's any way, I go, if you had that sitting on your workbench that you could recreate what you thought that was? He goes, thought what it was? He goes, no, I know what it was. So he sat down with somebody and had it done, and here it is.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. And so he says, this is what I had on my workbench.
Wow.
So, so this is a treasure. And so when I tell the story, I just tell it and just say, if you heard different versions, and if that's what you want to believe, go ahead and believe it, because I guess we'll never really know. But I thought that this was an interesting story to tell.
Yeah.
No, thank you very much for showing that as well. Just a couple of highs. We've got Hugh Thomas, hello. We've got Lindsay Atwell, we're still watching. Paul Bates, Kathy Case, John William Hughes, Mark Maycock. Heinz Gronberg. If you're obviously new to this watching, because obviously you've logged on for Gary, please go to or do it now actually. Go to the Palace Drum Clinic page, like us, because you'll find some more amazing, interesting guests and some great stuff that's been going on. Obviously, the website as well, palacedrumclinic.com. So, great. We've got a couple of questions today. The thing is, all these questions are coming up, and I'm just like going, "Oh, I wish I could tell this," but we've got the main man on, so. Yes, let's go to this one. Let's go to this one first. Oh, hi, David Lebson's watching again. And Robert Bryan as well. Well done, Rob. No, that's the wrong one. So Hugo Leon has said, what plywood was the keystone badge of Ringo's kit? Gary. What plywood? What ply and wood?
The maple kit, did you say?
Well, he said the keystone badge.
Oh, well, all of his kits had keystone badges. The ones that were Oyster Black Pearl were mahogany, poplar, mahogany. And for the maple kit, it was maple, poplar, mahogany.
There we go. Okay, fantastic. Just talking about, Pete, have you, I know, sorry, you've had quite a few vintages, but have you ever been aimed to get yourself, an Oyster Ringo kit at all, or have you played on one? Did you own one, or you?
No, I've never owned an Oyster Black set. My first proper grown-up drum set that I've had since I was about 9 is Oyster Blue, super classic, 22, 13, 16, and aluminium 400. And given my predilection for certain big band drummers, my late father, bless him, tracked down, and this back in a time when odd drums were really not easy to find. He tracked down an orphan 16 by 16 floor tom, so I could have the 2 floor toms, and it's plain black. And the great drum builder and renovator Eddie Ryan had apparently the last bit of the old 60s Ludwig Oyster Blue drum wrap anywhere in the UK, and he recovered this black floor tom for me, and with what was left he made me a canister throne, which I also still have. So there's pictures, there's an old video of it on YouTube from when I was in my teens, and I just put some audio of it up on YouTube just the other day from an old BBC broadcast recorded on my 18th birthday. And I mean, my dad got those drums in '64. He gave them to me about 8 years later. So I'm guessing that they were built in 1963. So they're really of the era when the quality control coming out of Chicago was really, really first class.
Yeah, yeah. Rob, we've talked many times about this actually about the Ludwig kits. What does Ringo and Ludwig mean to you? That lovely relationship.
For me, it was the reason to want to play Ludwig when I was a kid, and I never got around to it till I was 30. And then when I did, I bought a white marine pearl kit, but in the bigger sizes. But I tell you, one thing that I think is really cool is that Ringo stayed with them all the way through. I don't remember one time when he went to another company, even when he was taking lots of time off, and not doing very much in between, some of the tours or films or whatever he was doing. And he stuck with them through thick and thin. And I think that's quite remarkable, because we had a little conversation a little while ago about how that doesn't happen a lot these days. And I think he's aware that he made them, and at the same time, they've kind of helped him as well. And I think he had the same kind of symbiotic relationship with the Ludwig brand that Gene Krupa had with Slingerland. Krupa played one brand for his entire life. Ringo likewise. And, I can't think of another drummer who has had that kind of lifelong brand loyalty, and also the kind of reciprocal association between artist and drum manufacturer. I can't think of anybody else. You're absolutely right, and I think that is mega rare for that reason. There's 2 drummers we can think of in the last 100 years, you know.
Yeah, and the 2 most where you know, you can argue you like about who's you know, well known in the pantheon of drum history, but the 2 household name drummers of the swing big band era and the rock and roll era, who were known to, you know, every kid in the 30s and 40s knew Gene Krupa, every kid in the 60s knew Ringo Starr. You know, there are no other icons, and you know, this has nothing to do with how fast your left hand is or how fast your bass drum technique is, whatever. It's about visibility, and it's about the, you know, the biggest icons in the history of our instrument, and it is fascinating that they each had this lifelong allegiance to one make of drums.
Gary, did you want to come in with an earlier kits or something with that one?
I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, no, I was going to say that Ringo, to this day, he never had an endorsement deal with Ludwig, if you can believe that. Never.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because didn't they have to buy their own instruments as well?
Well, you know, what happened was Ringo, or you know, or through the band, you know, he bought the first Ludwig kit. He bought the one that was on the Ed Sullivan Show, and the ones he received after were all supplied by Ludwig. So, and in fact, here's a cool story that I found out was. I was doing a talk in Chicago, and towards the end of it, this old gentleman comes in, and there's a lot of people in the room, and it was just so distracting when the guy walked in, and everybody's like, you know, pointing down at him, and I'm going like, I don't know who this is. And it was a gentleman by the name of Dick Shorey. With Ludwig. And he's in his 80s now, and we've become friends. Been at his house, spent a lot of time with him, and he's sharp, and he's got a lot of stories. So the reason he came was he heard of me, and we were put off into a room after I finished my talk, and he just said, you know, he's a cute guy. He's old school with like a golf shirt on. It's buttoned up to here, and he's got his pants up to his rib cage, and a suit jacket on. And he just says, I have a lot of information that I need to share with you. It's very important that you know what I know. And I'm going, great. So I learned that he was the liaison after the Beatles' Sullivan performance. Bill Ludwig II said, Dick, I want you to take care of these guys, give them whatever they need. So he worked with Brian, and he worked with Ivor Arbetter to provide whatever items they could. He said he never had a relationship with Ringo, and I think he even really met him. But his story was that they knew that the Beatles were going to be doing their first tour in beginning of June of '64. So he starts sending over different drums for Ringo to try. And he says they even went as high as like a 24-inch bass drum. And I guess things got a little, you know, too complicated, and Ringo just settled on having a super classic kit. And going back to the smaller downbeat for a minute, I mean, I got this firsthand for Ringo. There's a picture of me and Ringo that's out there, you know, for the past 5 years. We're standing behind his first Ludwig kit, and I was with Ringo for about an hour and a half that day, and it was kind of emotional because prior to that photo being taken, you know, I was with Ringo for the last time for him to actually play that kit. And I'm just standing right there, and he starts playing it out of tune, but I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And some of the things he was doing was really cool. And actually, he even did the riff to come together. And when he did it, I must have had a look like this on my face, because he's playing, he does it, and then he sees me do what I did, and then he just goes back laughing, and then he goes, "You caught that?" And I said, "Yeah, I know what you're doing." What, a little note between us guys and people listening. After the fact, I'm thinking, okay, he said you caught that. What did he mean? Did he mean that he just kind of went into the beginning of Come Together? Or did he mean that I saw him go left to right?
Ah.
Yes.
Okay.
So I always forget to ask him, but he did it so smooth. I know he can easily go up, counterclockwise, but he definitely went the other way. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Well, there we are. Amazing. We've got Dave Brown actually says Bill Ludwig told him when he was in Chicago, Ringo was the best unpaid endorsee they ever had.
Yeah.
Well, he almost single-handedly saved Ludwig, wasn't it, from the Ed Sullivan show, wasn't it? But it was in '64.
You can imagine if it was Slingerland on the front of that drum, I'm sure Ludwig might have gone out of business.
Yeah, so we've got to thank Ringo for not just the music; it's literally the whole thing. Martinoli, hello, you've just joined in, fantastic. Dave Jones, hello. Thank you for watching. Ben Millard. Glyn Jones has actually said another one. What about Keith Moon with Premiere? Would that be another iconic one, or just because he had kept destroying them and they had to basically build it for every single gig?
Actually, that I don't know.
Anyone, Pete? Would you say Keith Moon's another iconic? Only.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. He's like a lead guitarist, drummer kind of thing, right?
Yes. So we're talking about the most iconics, manufacturer to the actual player. Would Keith Moon be one of those as well? In your
well, possibly. I mean, we know that he had an affiliation with Premier, but you don't have to look very far to find bits of film of Mooney playing both Ludwig and Slingerland on various television shows.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about Ringo and you're talking about Gene Krupa, and all that longevity, lifetime careers playing one brand is it's extraordinary. And the way our modern industry is now, it is unprecedented.
Yeah. Eduardo, hello. Thanks very much for watching. Now, this comes on, obviously, we've been talking about gear quite a lot because obviously we are with you, Gary, and it's like you are almost the authority on Ringo's gears. We've got a sort of question, which is, I suppose it's the most debated story, but if you know what the story is about, then it's not a debated one in your eyes. But Tristan Long's put the story of the golden-plated snare drum that Ringo got presented, the Ludwig family. The picture basically got that, and they basically just took it away. Rumored to be lost for decades. Now, so many people have told me this story. Can you give us the final kind of definition of the gold-plated snare drum, please?
Yeah, the absolute truth is that it was given to Ringo, and Ringo handed it off to Al Evans, and he still got it. He was surprised. He didn't think he had it, and what surprises me is I documented that as well. And there's some damage to it. It definitely was used. It has a calfskin head on the top. On the bottom, there's different tape markings and some tape residue and some actual tape on the bottom head. And on the inside of the shell is like masking tape, like a half-inch masking tape, and it just runs around the whole inside of the shell. And so when I asked Ringo, I said, "You had to play this." And then he goes, "No, I never did." I go, "Seriously?" And he says, "I never played it." And I'm thinking, would Zach have played it? But somebody dropped it, somebody lost parts. I guess so. You don't know, but there's a part of me sometimes, and Rob, I'm sure you would agree, you'd hear certain things. It's like, what was he playing? And And sometimes I wonder if maybe during certain segments of Sergeant Pepper that he was using the metal snare.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do wonder when you hear things, and you see pictures at Abbey Road of two. There's in the revolver sessions. There's like he's got two different kits, and there's one in the booth with the baffles around it and stuff, and there's one in the corner. And you often wonder if bits were like, well, let's just take the 13 off of that and put it on the 20, or put the 22 up with the 12 or something. You know, you often wonder if they didn't mix and match, and maybe that
I'm pretty sure that there was a lot of experimenting, and it was surprising too that Ringo rarely changed drum heads. I mean, when you see the mileage on his heads, it's like, why wouldn't he change them? But he didn't.
Cool.
Yeah. With regarding that kind of stuff, it's like with the experimentation. Tony Scully's put any ideas why Ringo changed from the 4-drum configuration to the 5-drum in the later Beatles years? Well, it was experimentation, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was experimentation, and then the story that I got there, you know, because I'm sure for a lot of Beatle fans at that time that were watching, you know, what was going on when they saw Let It Be, the movie, it's just like, what is that? What's he playing? Where's his Oyster Black Pearl kit? But you know, they said that they wanted to have that album be natural, and if you back up to when the Beatles were in India, you know, Ringo was only there for 2 weeks. But the other 3 were there, you know, longer, obviously, and they were spending time with Donovan. And Donovan told them, you know, if you sand the wood or the finish off your guitars, you'll get more of an organic sound. So they all did it, you know. John did it, you know, all 3. And so obviously they relayed that to Ringo. So when he decided, okay, well, I'm going to get a natural kit, I'm going to get a real kit, you know, he ordered one that was all wood with calfskin heads, and then he just added the second tom because it just gave more versatility.
Yeah. Hi Dan Gresham, how you doing? So thank you very much, guys, for watching. It's been lovely comments as well. Can't read them all out, but obviously they're there for people to read, and obviously you seem to have your own conversations as well, which is brilliant. Now, Rob and Pete, I know we have this almost, well, Rob and I have this disease of collecting, especially vintage drums and everything else. We usually have collections. And would you agree with me, Rob and Pete, that your snare drum, we have more snare drums because obviously different choices and stuff like that for different recordings and different. Would that be a given from us? Different, you know, more snare drums than kits? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because they take up a whole lot less space as well.
Yeah.
It's practical.
It's practical.
But do you know what? This came up on Facebook earlier today. Something I've never owned is an Acrolite, and but there's still time. There's still time, and I've really got a yearning for a mid-70s Acrolite with the blue olive badge with the pointy corner.
Yeah, do it.
There's a great drummer in the Midlands who was a big deal session player in London in the 60s called Dougie Wright, who you will know.
Yeah.
And the first time I heard Dougie play, he moved out of London and he was living in, I think in Leicestershire. And he was playing at a jazz festival that I was also playing at in 1979. And he had his Gretsch set, but with this most beautiful sounding Acrolite snare. And from that day forward, I thought, one of these days, I'm going to own one of those drums. And we're now 41 years past that, and I still haven't got around to it.
Yeah.
But soon.
Dougie actually came to the Palace Drum Clinic, and I basically, people who don't know Dougie Wright, just Google him, because obviously he's one of our heritage guys. Basically, you know, he was from up north, joined the John Barry 7 very early on, moved down to London, was a session player, and he's played on like hundreds and hundreds of singles and all that kind of stuff, top tens. He's actually worked with Paul McCartney. You know, he's a drummer for Shay Tem. That was him. Lots of other different ones, even the Wurzels. But let's not go there. But he actually came and he had that Gretsch kit still. Pete. So if you go to the Palace website, in past clinics, you'll see Dougie be interviewing all his all his stories and everything else, and the kit's actually there. So yeah, if you want to know
Okay.
what he's talking about, it's actually on the website. So the reason I come to that because Gary, I haven't told you this before, but I see you every single day.
You do?
I do. I see you every single day. Not a lot of people know this, apart from my family, is
You're a
that
stalker.
yeah, I'm talking.
Yeah.
My air miles are through the roof. Yeah. No, it's when Gary came over, it's 2017, I believe, last time. You came to do a presentation for us, amazing presentation. Wherever you are in the world, guys, if you get to see Gary do one of his presentations, please go. Not necessarily just for, like, you know, obviously some people know the stories. He's got some pictures that you don't realise, you know, actually you've been out there. He's got some lovely ones, but it's just the passion that's like actually Gary gives, because he's a fan. First and foremost, and it's such a wonderful storytelling. It's from the heart, it's passion. So please go and see his presentations. They're actually amazing. Part of the whole kind of presentation that you basically come over, you did, I think, what is an amazing thing for the drumming world, which obviously is the Star Classic. So Star Festival, snare drum. And there's several things to go with it, but if you can just tell us a little bit, people who don't know, and if people got, I do believe there's only a few left to buy now, unless they're all gone. And if you've got very, very deep pockets, guys, just listen to Gary, and he'll tell everything how the Star Festival came along.
All right. I just had this idea, and a friend of mine was quietly helping me too, you know, saying, hey, wouldn't it be cool if, you know, now that you know the specifics of Ringo's drum kit, you know, if you could actually replicate it. And so created this 13-page PowerPoint presentation about replicating the kit, what the idea was, where the, you know, how the money would go to support Barbara and Ringo's Lotus Foundation. And I was very apprehensive about doing it, but I created it, and I sent the PowerPoint by email to Ringo's drum tech, Jeff Jonas, and to Ringo's personal assistant named Scotty. And so I sent it to both of them, and Scotty calls me back and he said, what is this? Is this idea that you kept telling me about? And I said, yeah, that's what it is. So he says, well, what is it? So I'm trying to explain it to him, and he sounds like he's not listening, and he says, I gotta go. And calls me back in less than an hour, I'd say, and he said, hey, with that project? I said, yeah. And I thought he was just gonna say, forget it. And he goes, you're in, you're done. And I go, what do you mean I'm in? And he said, Ringo approved it. I go, what do you mean he approved it? You weren't even supposed to show him that. It was just a draft. And I said, what'd you do? And he says, yeah, Barbara in the living room. He goes, I just went in, slid next to him on the couch, and just said, hey, Gary's got this cool project. And he showed him, and Ringo had a few suggestions. And he says, yeah, he told me he can do it. And so I says, well, what do I do now? And he goes, build them. And I go, got to talk to the lawyer or whatever? And he says, no, just do it. He goes, I said, we're done. He goes, yeah, you're gold. Do it. And so we did it. And so many magical things happened during the course of doing the drum kit, or the snare drum. But one of the best parts, when it was all said and done, I wanted to present Ringo with number one. We only did 15. I wanted to give him 1 of 15. And so I called to make an appointment, and I said, hey, this is going to be really geeky, but it's all part of everything else that's happening. I said, Ringo took possession of his jazz festival on May 12th of 1963. So 55 years later, I'd like to give him his snare drum on May 12th of 2018. So Scotty said, he's not going to do that. It's a Saturday, you know, and he says, pick another date. You know, so I said, all right. So we hang up the phone. He talks to Ringo. He calls me back and he said, come over at 1 on the 12th. I go, really? He goes, yeah, come to the house on the 12th. So I did, and you know, the drum has all these accessories, the case and things. So I you know, go to his house, and I said, I'm a geek with this. I go, so I want to explain all the details so that you know all of what's going on. And I go, but if I just get carried away, just tell me to shut up. So he starts going like this, like, shut up, you know. And so I give him the details. I pull the snare drum out of the case, and it came with drumsticks. So he takes the drumsticks, as I'm pulling it out, he starts wailing away on it, playing Back Off Boogaloo. And in my head, I'm going like, I don't believe this, you know. And on his, I installed a calfskin head, and on all the others, they came with a Weathermaster head. It was all reproduced by Ludwig, but I had a Weathermaster in the case, you know. And so as Ringo's playing it, you know, he gives you these little bits of gold. He just said, because, you know, he goes, the rim's too high around the shell. He goes, I can't get the rim shot like I like. I go, so you want the rim lower, closer to the head? Yeah. So I said, okay, when we're done, I'll do that for you. So I did do that, but the point was, we finish up. I tell him everything. Barbara even comes into the room at one point, and she goes, so what is this, Gary? Did you do this all yourself? And I said, no. A lot of people involved. It was a team effort. And then Ringo takes over and starts telling her everything I told him. And I'm like, you were listening, you know? So he got very emotional as we're talking. He just said, I'm tearing up. And I go like, what? And he goes, this is very emotional for me. And I'm going, what? And then he just hugged me, and he just started crying. And I'm hugging him, and I'm just thanking him. I go, Ringo, this is from me, from all your fans. I mean, you don't know how important you really are. And I look over right behind Ringo is Scotty, who's taking pictures of the moment, and he's crying. And what happened was, later on that night, Scotty and I go to, we hooked up, went out for dinner, and I said, I cannot believe how Ringo was today at the house. And then Scotty says, what are you talking about? I said, it's the way he was at the house. I go, I just couldn't believe the way he was. And then Scotty said, you were with Ringo at the house. He goes, you were with Richie Starkey. That's him. And then I cried, because it was such an emotional moment. But what I find interesting now, when I did the project, it just seemed so natural. But you know, now I know that Ludwig really never got a deal to do something. Obviously, they came up with a Fab Four kit and their Golden Slumbers kit, but they never had an authorized drum kit by Ringo. And same with cymbal companies. So the way this is playing out is, you know, with these 15 snare drums that were made, they're going to be collectibles, because no one else, no other manufacturer ever did anything like this, even though Ludwig was a part of it. You know, it was a project that came from the heart. So the reason for the high price is we knew that if it was set at 20, people would be sitting on them to sell them in the future. And so it was like, you know what, we're not going anywhere. It's not like we need the money. So I'm keeping one, and I have one left. So yeah, this whole thing's been a nice ride.
Didn't you even manage to get to the whole production, how they actually made it back in, like, you know, '64 and everything else, with this like scarf wrap and all that kind of stuff?
Oh yeah, all of it is
heads as well.
Yeah, Ludwig did the scarf joint where the wrap goes inside the shell. We used the original machines. Ludwig fired them up to make the shells, and they had in Ludwig's facility, they have all of the machines for Weathermaster heads, and most of them are broke down. They don't even work. And when they showed me that, I said, oh man, I go, too bad the one doesn't work for the snare, you know, 14-inch snare drums. I said, it'd be great if you could reproduce the old heads. And then someone in the workshop said, we can do that. So they did. So it was kind of cool that was even part of it. And then with Ringo signing the shells, you know, and taking part in like the the Star Festival logo. You know, it was, I'm like, as a fan, I'm just going like, can't believe I'm doing this. And another funny thing that was interesting is when I gave Ringo the drum, you know, Scotty said, what number are you giving him? I said, 1 of 15. He goes, he doesn't want that. I go, well, what's he want? He goes, he wants number 9. Yeah. And then, yeah, so I gave him that, and then he bought number 7 for Barbara, 007 kind of thing, Bond girl. Yeah,
of course.
So, yeah, so all these magical moments, and that doesn't even count what we did in February. You know, me and another gentleman named Scotty we got Ringo's crosswalk jacket that he's wearing on the Abbey Road album. We got it, and we gave it to him as an early birthday present in February of this year. And to see him, to be there in the moment when that happened, we had the gift wrap. We had stars on the top of the box, and so Ringo, you know, he's like a little kid. He, you know, takes the box off, and there's like nice wrapping paper covering the coat. So he says, "Oh, you got me a box of wrapping paper," you know. So it's like, come on, move the paper out of the way. So he does, and he looks, and he goes, "Oh, you got me a black jacket." And then he pulls it out, and then at the same time, Robert, my friend that was involved in this, and me are going like, no, that's your jacket. You go, that's history. That's the jacket. So when it folds out, he goes, "This is my jacket?" I go, "Yeah, this is your jacket." So he puts his arm through, and he goes, "I've got short arms." He goes, "This fits. This is my jacket." And he put it on, and he was absolutely speechless. He didn't know what to say. Usually Ringo would have jokes and comebacks, and he just put it on, and he starts walking, and we I don't know how it happened, but we started following behind him, and then he just said, "Let's walk like we're crossing Abbey Road." You know, he was like a little kid, and got a few pictures. He disappeared into the house, and then we thought, "Oh, that's weird. Where'd he go?" And Barbara came out, and she just said, "You made my husband very, very happy. Thank you." And we found out later that Ringo went in the house, and he just broke down. He was just looking at himself in the mirror with the jacket on, and Scotty just said, "You okay?" He was, "I can't believe they did this for me." And it was to be there for that. It was off the charts. And for me, I can never stop giving back. I mean, because Rob, I think you can relate. Every day, the Beatles or Ringo is on my mind since I was a kid. Every day, and he brought so much joy into my life that there's no way I could ever pay him back. And by doing the things that I've done, to have him reciprocate and be friends with me, who gets that? You know, nobody gets that. And I cherish every moment I'm with that guy.
Yeah. Oh, thank you very much for telling that story. Talking about, you know, every day you think about, well, going back to Every Day I See You, Gary, is that, I don't know if you can see, now with that festival, you got these keys, didn't you? It actually says 1963, April the 18th, 2018. Yeah, and it's you had 500. You had to get 500 of these, didn't you, made?
Yeah.
Keys.
Right.
So I bought one. I had to buy one, and I asked Gary in the car park. I said, "Can you sign? Really? Do you want me to sign? Yeah. Can you just sign? Because this is the little brochure for it, and that hangs on my wall in my studio, and I see it every single day. So, Gary, you're with me every single day.
That's humbling. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much to say. It's you know, it's they'll stay there, and so I had to basically frame it and everything else. So that's more. So I'm not a stalker, Pete. That is for Gary anyway. I might be somewhere, but it's not talk about that. Yeah, but
I think you are. I think you are. On the balance of probabilities, I think you probably are.
Thank you, thank you. And if my mum and dad are watching, I'm not mum, honestly. So no, it's great. Just talking about this, like a couple of years, because that's a lovely story. Dave Brown says, Gary, do you know if Ringo still has the Slingerland tube lug WMP artist snare?
I should know, but I'm not recalling. I archived all of his all-star band kits and any of the gift snare drums that he was given over the years, and I so many I just don't remember.
Yeah. Okay. What was I say? We might be able to find that one out. But talking about, so say, Pete Fenwick. Hi, Pete. Thanks for joining. So saw one of Gary's presentations a few years back, maybe London Drum Show. I think that was UK Drum Show. Thoroughly enjoyed it. The highlight of the whole show for me. So so there. So you got a lot of followers over here. As I say, just hearing the story of the jacket, it's the whole kind of, you know, the love of the whole kind of fan and everything else. It's just beautiful to hear. Tony Scanning said, great stories. Thank you. Now with now Pete and Rob, you're well, big advocates of the vintage show. So it's Simon John's vintage show. It's a great show. Obviously, come out to everything else. Fingers crossed it's going to happen in October. Nobody knows, but fingers crossed it will. Rob, you're meant to be playing there this year, aren't you?
I am indeed. Yes, Simon asked me to do a Ringo presentation, not for the first time, because you asked me to do one as well, Matthew.
I asked you to do one for National Drum Fair, yeah. So
which I did, and I loved every second of it. And yes, Simon wants me to come along, and he's going to have various kits from the different periods of time, and he wants me to play Ringo-isms on those drum kits. And as I say, I can't wait to do it, as long as it happens and you know, this dreaded virus lets us do such a thing. Yes.
Yeah. To be honest, I didn't even know that might still be on. I should talk to Simon, because he actually had me coming out too.
That's right. Yeah.
Amazing. I don't know if you guys actually know this. Obviously, Gary does, because as well. But Simon, because obviously Simon Wagstaff is obviously, you know, the founder of the Vintage Johns. I'll get smacked in the face for that one. Simon John's Vintage Show. He's a massive Ringo fan and Beatles fan as well. And for the 80th birthday, from the actual show, Simon actually commissioned 2 snare drums to be made, one for Ringo and one to kept, and he managed to get it to you, didn't he, Gary? And you say you actually gave it to Ringo. Can you tell us how did that go down?
Yeah, Simon, you know, asked if I could help him, and I said yeah. So he kept me informed as he was going through the process, and you know, I told him, I said, you get it to me, I'll get it to Ringo, and that's what we did. So he got it to me, and because of this COVID situation, you know, when I got it, I had to I made Scotty aware, and so I had to clean it again, you know, just using like alcohol and things, and so I sent it along with a written letter saying, you know, where it came from, and Simon had also made a video. So Scotty gave it to Ringo on his birthday in the morning, and he was blown away. And if I have photos of it, there's no way I could share them here, but they were professionally done, and I'll tell you that snare drum, it really hit home with him, and as you can imagine, for his 80th birthday, Ringo got a lot of stuff, you know. So, but that was one that hit his heart, and it definitely did, because that when we were doing the media event, Barbara actually commented to me about the snare drum. So for her to say something, you know, says a lot. So yeah, it was off the charts with what he did.
Oh, that's so nice to hear that. And guys, obviously, if you are about, and if we are can actually get over to commentary for the vintage show. Simon has actually got the other one because he had basically 2 commissioned. So you'll see actually what he actually sent over to Ringo, and I can tell you now, it's a beautiful piece of art. I think that's all I can say really about it, and a lovely homage to Ringo as well. So fingers crossed you can get to see it, and you never know, you know, you may actually physically be there in the person, so rather than seeing online. So thank you. And obviously if we can get Gary over, obviously we may see those photos of actually Ringo receiving them as well. So it's all good, guys. Thank you ever so much for your comments and everything else. It's been absolutely it's been a lovely evening, and we haven't finished yet. I've just looked at the time. It's quarter to 10 already, and then we haven't quite finished yet. But thank you ever so much for your heartwarming stories online, any questions and everything. Hi, Tim Tanner, nice to meet you. Again, you know, if you're new to this, you're basically watching, please go to the Palace Drum Clinic Now page and like it, because obviously you've got some lovely stuff coming up as well. Guys, Simon Wagstaff, Garage says, bless you, Gary. There we go. So that's from Simon Wagstaff.
Hey, Simon.
Yeah.
Good man.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Simon, for actually sorting that one out. What a lovely gesture over here. So basically, your fans in the UK, really, isn't it? Really. So there we go. It's where can we basically put Ringo? We've had many conversations. Peter, I'd like to come with this because, you know, it's a many kind of how many hours can we talk about? It's like, you know, it's like a pecking orders, like it's all personal preferences, it's all, you know, it's all judgmental, you know. Well, what is it? But Ringo, obviously, you know, the famous quote, he's not even the best drummer in the Beatles. He has to be there, doesn't he? He has to be one of those, you know, iconic, influential, you know, and he's just basically the right man for the right job drummer. Where would he basically be in your eyes as, you know, in the drumming's like history of legend? Pete?
Oh, was that for me? Well, you know, what if anybody, if there are any doubters still left out there, what I recommend that they do, and they're on YouTube, you can find them very easily, is listen to the Beatles Decca audition tapes from January 1st, 1962, which of course has Pete Best on drums, and then listen to Please Please Me, but then particularly with the Beatles, by which time it's really starting to, the whole thing is really starting to coalesce, and he really brought that band to life. Because, you know, the Decca audition tapes are, you know, they're kind of okay, but they're not, you know, they don't have that, as I say, that cohesive fire that was, you know, that probably, you know, you could argue that it's not really very much in evidence on Love Me Do, which of course was the first single. But by the time Please Please Me came out, beginning of '63, it's right there in Staples, and he just took the band to he did what all good drummers do. He took the band to a not previously attained level of achievement and, you know, finesse, and that to me is, if you're ever in any doubt, just listen to those early recordings and see what a difference he made to the Beatles.
You know, what's interesting is that you've all been in bands, and I'm sure everyone's had the experience where someone either sits in as a lead guitar player, and then everyone in the band looks at each other and goes, "Oh my God, I wish I had him in the band," you know. Ringo has the magic touch, and as I said earlier, I'm not starstruck, but I'm telling you, and I shared this with Greg Bissonette, who plays in the All-Star Band, and he's a phenomenal off-the-charts drummer and a great human being. Had the luxury of standing behind Ringo during sound checks, and now you're watching them play, so you're seeing all these little intricacies, like that's how he does it, or that's how he holds his stickers. Why is he hitting the cymbal with the shaft and, you know, not the tip? But he's got that magic touch. You know, if I would just go up there and play what he did, it would not be the same. But so the point is that magic that he has, it comes across, and they all had it, and it comes across in the recordings, and it's something you can't make up. You know, either you got it or you don't. You know, and he's not flashy. And he doesn't care about that. In fact, I think at one point he made the comment. Somebody told Ringo that what famous Rich. Help me with the name. Famous drummer we were just talking about him, Slingerland. Buddy Rich.
Oh,
Buddy Rich
made
have a negative comment towards Ringo, and then Ringo fires back with, well, he sounds like he just has rats running across his toms. You know, so. But he's got it. You know, whatever that magic is, he's got it.
Mm. And I think the thing that was quite important, I think for all of the, I know we're talking about Ringo, but for all of the band and the music at the time, is they listened to a lot of other styles of music. They listened to music hall. They listened to Sinatra, you know, Louis Armstrong, you know, as well as the blues guys. They listened to all of that. So Ringo, and like Charlie Watts too, but for me, it's always really been Ringo. He's got that slight shuffle, implied shuffle in his playing, even when he's playing straight. So that doesn't mean everything he does has got that shuffle in it. But when he wants to turn it on, he can turn it on. And I tell you, like Pete was saying, for any doubters out there, you know, when you're behind the glass and you're working for somebody and you're recording a track and they go, give me that slight Ringo thing, which is what I mentioned earlier. And you go, what's that? The swipe of the hats? No. The feel, no, the feel. And you're like, oh, okay. Now for me, it's okay because I've studied him since I was 9. But that slight grey area between straight, swung, and it could move through the track. That kind of thing is what I say to people, right, you think Ringo can't play drums, man. You try and nail that. Yeah, you can do the triplets in a day in a life. You could do the Tomorrow Never Knows thing. Oh, okay. And, you know, the big rock thing that he does, you know, because I posted that clip at Washington Coliseum when they're doing Long Tall Sally, and he's playing that two-handed quaver thing at the end, and then those triplets, and his foot is coming off that pedal and he's stomping, man. It's exciting. It's punk drumming, you know, way before punk drumming had been invented. But, you know, as I say, get down to that feel thing, to try and get that with the nuance like he did with the Plastic Ono Band, that kind of thing, and the I Am the Walrus thing. Man, that is so hard. And, you know, for that alone, you know, let alone for me, he's up there anyway, but that alone, trying to recreate that for an artist who's trying to find that, and you're under those conditions, man, when you can nail a feel like that, hands down, you know, it's like...
what I found very telling is probably about 8 years ago now, there was a little kind of video montage, like a tribute to Ringo, done by a lot of, you know, A-list, very well-known, you know, big drummers from well-known bands. Yeah. And they all kind of sat down and tried to do a bit of his thing, and nobody got anywhere near it at all. It's astounding.
Absolutely.
Nobody got even close. And it was the swung eighth note that was missing. Yeah. Everything was too straight, and you know, it's like Ticket to Ride. The placement of those the placement of those eighth notes in Ticket to Ride to a Brazilian would be completely natural. But yeah. if you've been to college and you know, played with a click for your entire teenage years, you might actually be taking a step away from that, you know, very intuitive, organic way of playing the instrument, which is what I believe he embodies.
Definitely. There's a great clip of him doing that on some chat show with Dave. I can't think of his name. The guitarist from the Eurythmics, Dave. Why can't I think of his name?
Dave Stewart.
Thank you. And he's there on this chat show, and he's saying, "This is what I want to talk about the drums. People need to know this. It's in front of a live audience." And he says, "Right, we're going to Ticket to Ride." So he goes ding, da, da, ding, ding. He gets a little roll, and it's the dum, bra, da, da, bra, brum. And he said, "I'm going to stop you there, Ringo, because what most drummers do is even boom, bra, da, dum, bra, boom, boom." He said, "But you come in slightly before that forehand, and it's not even an E. It's somewhere in between.
Well, that's why I said Brazilian. It's
Absolutely.
like it's that, you know, it's that organic, natural feel that is not in textbooks.
Absolutely. And you put that across rock and roll, man, you've got an interesting drummer. I mean, that is just off the chart. Yeah. I feel fine. All those grooves, man, they become something completely different. All of them.
Mm. Well, as you can see, we can talk all night about like the groove and like the feel and everything else. It goes back to like, you know, what makes a good drummer. So very early on when we started these chat shows. Hi, Ian Palmer, Philip Monta, Kenneth Turner. Hello, thanks very much for watching. Tristan Long puts, please me. The cha-cha section Ringo plays a fill on bar 3 and then plays bar 4 straight. It simply blends in. Genius.
Yeah.
You know, things like that. It's like, you know, it's you know, he has got a sound, he's got a groove and everything else, and that's what makes Ringo, isn't it? And I think it's at the end of the day. I'm a bit conscious of time, guys, because obviously it's coming up to 10 o'clock UK time. That is. Gary, what have we got coming up? Have you got any more projects with the kits at all? Obviously, you know, obviously you got the website and everything else. What's next? Is there anything?
Yeah, the only thing to make people aware of is that there's a business called the CAA, Creative Artists Agency in Los Angeles. They have Ringo's first Ludwig drum kit on display there. It's I set it up in November, and it's coming down in November. So that's there, and the Ed Sullivan head is there also on display, free of charge. I think it's just during the week, but it's in the lobby, and it's yeah, well represented. Other projects, there are 2 things, but I can't talk about them. But yeah, there's other things going on. Yeah.
So you're not staying still with these; you actually are moving forward, which is fantastic, isn't it? So
yeah,
it's absolutely brilliant. And what we've got to realise is, Gary, you do this for the labour of love, don't you?
Yeah, pretty much. It's just, I mean, it's what I've done all my life. So the only cherry on top is I got Ringo supporting me. So how cool is that? I mean, it's, you know, I pinch myself, and it's funny just to share with you, because I know this doesn't happen to people. I mean, to me, it's almost like a story in itself. And but to hang around with him and to talk to him, it's just like talking to you guys. It's just like normal. And yet when I'm processing everything, when I'm flying back home, I'm going like, every time I think what more can happen, something else happens.
Gary, can I get an option on the movie rights to your life story?
Yeah, well, you
know what? You know, joking apart, it would make a great story.
It would, definitely.
Just think about that for a moment. That would be.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. It's still hard for me to process, to be honest with you. So, but yeah, I'm not religious, but I'm blessed. Yeah. I don't know what else to call it.
Yeah. Well, as long as we're all free to actually do this section of the movie, I'm in. So, you know, fine. No worries at all. Just guys, thank you so much to say. I keep plugging it, but obviously, you know, because we get great evenings like this, and it's been a fantastic evening. Please go to the Palace Drum Clinic website, palacedrumclinic.com. See all the fantastic things. We've talked about some of them already in the past clinics. What's coming up as well. It always gets updated on a regular basis. Obviously, the Facebook page. If you don't follow us, click that like button and you basically see what's happening coming up. Obviously, we're all online at the moment, but we do live events as well when we can get back to them. Obviously, the Palace Drumming Club as well. It's more interactive. You can have a chat with everything else, and it's like, you know, things are going on. Put some live stuff on there, and all kinds coming up. And the new thing that's actually coming up, I did promise to tell you, is that we've had 2 very successful online masterclasses, but we decided not to do those anymore. Boo, I hear you all say. Because we're actually at the end of this month, we're actually going to launch the PD course, the Palace Drum course, which is going to be a 4-week thing. We're going to run one into August, the end of this month into August, and then at the beginning of September. So it's going to be 2 courses. They're very, very different, but basically the template's the same. It's basically you can obviously sign up for the whole week or just an individual masterclass. More information on that at the beginning of next week. So please keep up to date on the Facebook. That's why you need to press that like button so you can follow us as doing completely. And there's some great things coming up in the future. But Bob Smelt said, life story, yes, that's what we want. so Pete, you're absolutely on the money, I think, with Gary. But yeah, you have to write us in. You know, make sure, Gary, you actually get us in there.
A whole chapter?
Yeah, that'd be a great whole chapter. Yeah, your UK friends, that's what it needs to be called. So the UK chapter, that'd be amazing. Hi, Alwyn, thanks for watching. Now, we're shortly coming to the end here. So it's been absolutely privileged. We could talk to Gary for actually ages. Well, the thing is, we generally do talk for ages about these things, but a couple of things that we also need to do is obviously, you know, October. Let's look to see what October. So, guys, please stay safe so we can actually get out there and do some stuff. So, if the October show, so Simon John's Vintage show is happening, you'll definitely see Rob there. You'll definitely see Pete there. You'll definitely see me there. And fingers crossed, you'll see Gary there as well, with everything else. So that's one thing to look forward to. But we'll go to his page. It's vintagedrums.co.uk. Keep all the in-dates, updates are basically on there. So hopefully it will happen. But I'm no government scientist or advisor, so I can't say what's going on. Hi, Matthew Devonish is watching. You joined in. Again, if you've basically just joined in very early on, you can watch us on replay. If you do want to comment, just put #replay. Also, it will be on the YouTube site, which is my actually YouTube site. Just type in Matt Green Drums into YouTube, and you'll find us on there. This will be on 24 hours after the show is stopped. So, so we've got lots of stuff going. And next week, what we have, if anyone is like a fan of Shawn Mendes, we have Mike Steith, who's Shawn Mendes' drummer. He'll be joining us next week on the PD Chat Show. So he's I chatted to him a couple of weeks ago. A lovely bloke. He's in Canada, and he again, he's just like, he's a completely different one, and he's got some stories to tell, and a completely way of actually setting his drum kit up. So if you don't know him, please look at him. It's Mike Steith, so Sleath, and look up him, and so you know exactly what you're going to be expecting. A fantastic week next week. So it's only one thing we need to say, guys, is well, thank you again to my Beatle nut Rob. Thank you very much. How many Lonely Hearts Sergeant Peppers have you got? 1, 2, 3.
I've got a Ringo.
Oh, Ringo. Look at that. Amazing.
Bad impression, sorry, it's rubbish.
Yeah.
And loads of records and things. I've got loads of records and bits and bobs, but I won't bore you with that now.
No, but you have physically just set them out purposely for tonight, haven't you?
I really have. Plus the T-shirt when they were in Japan. Yeah, I've really pushed it back.
So I know Rob's enjoyed the evening, you can tell. Pete, thank you very much again for your wise words of everything. But to say, it's to Gary really. Thank you ever so much for joining us and sharing a love and a passion that is basically your relationship with Ringo and the drum kits, and obviously how you led there. We could talk for hours. Hopefully we'll see in October so we can actually physically sit there and have a chat about everything. But thank you ever so much for joining us, and thank you for the insights. Obviously, well done for like actually managed to getting over there in this pandemic that we are at the moment, actually to sort of celebrate with Ringo as well. And thank you very much for obviously sorting that snare out from Simon as well. So big sort of warm heart for me to you, Gary. Thank you very much for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed it.
I did. Guys, thank you so much. It was a pleasure meeting you and spending time with you. And I hope we get to see each other in real life. So
we will. I can guarantee, as I say, I generally, if I say something, then I make it happen. So you'll meet these guys in person. So thanks so much, guys, for watching at home. It's been a fantastic evening. Again, I say lovely comments. Charlie Ashby, thanks again for a great show, guys. Top job as always. Well, thank you for watching. If we'll just be talking to ourselves, which we don't mind, but we love talking to you guys as well. So again, so next week we've got Mike Steith on at 8:30 BS UK time, and it's just basically just a privilege to say thank you guys, Rob and Pete again, and thank you very much, Gary, for joining us. And we'll see you. Well, actually, I'm off for a haircut, so you'll see me tomorrow with a slightly different bonnet. Okay, guys, take care, everyone. All the best. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.